まったく。
Hey, I'm back to cook some bussin' video again. So we're back yet again, here on the same place where I normally yap about my little series. It's been a while since the last time I posted this back in like September. It feels like it's almost been like a year. Whatever, I might as well just start this anyway. So yeah, let's get going, I guess. Number 1. The LMS Fowler 3P262T is a fleet of 70 suburban tank engines that were built by the Derby Works between 1930 and 1932. These locomotives can be seen across the entirety of the LMS network, operating passenger trains along the branch lines on push-pull trains, or even on suburban mainline runs between London St. Pancras or London's Euston across the Midland and West Coast mainlines. And they were all withdrawn between 1959 and 1964 by British Railways. LMS Fowler 3P number 15509 was built in 1930 as a part of the first batch of steam locomotives, and was named Miranda, and was seen operating across the suburban networks of the LMS until being withdrawn sometime during the 1960s. After being withdrawn, she was sent to the island of Sodor, awaiting her fate, before eventually being saved by our lovable blue tank engine. After being sent to the works, she was repaired and put back into service by the Northwestern region, and as of today, she's still operational on the main line ever since. Number 2. The Marin Incline, also known as Gordon's Hill, is a steep gradient that is located between Molesworth and Marin. It is home to some of the bankers that bank trains up this steep gradient and the most infamous part of the Northwestern Main Line. The reason why the incline got its name was because of Gordon. While pulling a goods train, he got stuck on the hill and had to be pushed by a banker. Over the years, Gordon's Hill has seen a wide range of bankers, ranging from the GWR pannier tanks to the LMS Ginties, and even our fellow number 2 steam locomotive named Edward, in which, when a train got stalled at the hill or was ready to be banked at a station, these bankers would help out by pushing the train from the back and then letting them go at the top of the hill once they reached the top. Upon a rare occasion, they don't really need a banker, so they strive through the station and the hill, and then once they reach the top, they go down and continue on their way. Despite the changes happening around it, Gordon's Hill remains an iconic part of the Northwestern Main Line and still stands ever since. Number 3. Despite its quote-unquote hypocritical nature, the Peel Godred and Gorsethlan lines would combine up to create an entire northern route between Kildane and Moorooka upon Thames. The line is seen of numerous changes, mainly within its electric fleet, as starting in 1923, designs similar to that of the Northeastern Railway would be built to operate along the Peel Godred branch line by the Crobins Gate Works, before eventually the Class 76 and Class 77 designs of the LNER gradually began to replace them in service along these electrified routes of the island of Sodor. These designs would last up until the 1980s, even helping out with the steam locomotives to get up the hill towards Peel Godred or Moorooka, despite its hypocritical nature. The Class 87s soon arrived in the late 1970s and soon replaced the original LNER designs, eventually taking over their place by 1984. As of today, both electrified parts of the island are now seen operating with Class 92s and Class 90s, pulling both goods and passenger trains, and even allowing steam locomotives to operate along their lines, once again proving their hypocrisy. Number 4. The Seaside Station, which is seen in Thomas and Stepney alongside the village, is actually a part of a branch line that runs from Tidmouth to Knapford via the coastal bypass, and then would switch off from Knapford towards the seaside terminus at Crosby in Wakefield. So the Seaside Station's name, at least in my head, is Southend Beach, which was opened in 1885 when this Tidmouth to Knapford bypass was built. The southern portion of the line from Knapford was opened in 1879 by the Rosewood and Surrey Railway, years before the Knapford to Tidmouth bypass was opened, and it allowed trains from Tidmouth to travel to Wakefield and Lord Crosby Beach. Although the line has seen some rolling stock changes throughout the years, nowadays it is run with the Class 165 and 166 DMUs, and as of today, the line is still operational with the Northwestern Railway. Number 5. The town of Tidmouth is located around the west of the island, but it likes to act like a major city just like London, which is why in 1899 an underground railway network was opened between Tidmouth and Loughborough Road. This was known as the Tidmouth and Loughborough Underground Traction Company, or simply known as the Tidmouth and Loughborough Underground Railway. The line for most of its early years was seen with locomotive hauled stock, with an electric locomotive and carriages being pulled between 6 different stops, including the 2 terminus stations. 2 years later, another railroad company would be formed. This was known as the City and North Tidmouth Railway Company, which was opened in 1901 and operated between Tidmouth towards Tidmouth Beach Station up in the north. Just like its southern counterpart during its early years, it is also seen with locomotive hauled stock, with both of these companies also owning steam locomotives, with the southern portion owning a Kerr-Stewart Brazil class, and the northern portion owning 2 Hunsett 060 2-gauged steam locomotives. All 3 of these 2-gauged locomotives would be operational until the arrival of the 2-gauged EMUs, which would eventually replace the locomotive hauled stock in the 1910s. A third company was opened a year later in 1902, known as the Tidmouth Central Underground Railway, or the Tidmouth Central Railway. The line operated between Tidmouth Bagenor Street to Tidmouth Haymarket Street to Tidmouth Southend Street. It even had its own little shunter known as Southend, which would operate shunting trains between Southend Street yards towards the station at Southend, and would operate until being withdrawn sometime during the 1980s by the Tidmouth Underground. Speaking of which, this little shunter is now on display at the Transportation Museum of Tidmouth, where it remains to this day, and all 3 lines of what is now known as the Tidmouth Underground is still operational with us to this day, striving with passengers coming in and out of the city to see the sights of Sodor in the underground system. Number 6. The Crovan's Gate and Ballydrail Railway was a railway company that used to be owned by the Sodor and Mainland Railway before becoming a consultant company in the 1900s. The line was well known for using rolling stock sourced from that of the North London Railway, and the line would stretch from Crovan's Gate towards Ballydrail, with a junction spearing off from Ballydrail towards a small seaside village known as Newport. Although they did primarily use loaned North London Railway stock, the Sodor and Mainland Railway did get their own rolling stock to fill in for that role, and as of today, the line is now operated by the Northwestern Railway, and is still operational with us ever since. Number 7. Speaking of the Crovan's Gate and Ballydrail Railway, there used to be a service running from Vicarstown towards Newport, and this was known as the Newport Market Train. On the day of the Market Festival, the train would run off towards Newport. However, it would end up at a small station known as Newport Market Street before heading up to its final destination of Newport Quay, where the load would be dropped off, and at the evening, the train would head back towards Vicarstown as an empty stock move. Unfortunately, the line fell under the rug of the beaching acts, and so, in 1964, the final Market Festival special ran from Vicarstown to Newport and then back again, and then just 2 weeks later, the line was closed for good. As of today, a strict portion of the line can be seen. However, memories of those who had seen and or heard of this special train that runs from Vicarstown to their home turf can now embrace and enjoy what it once was, a successful attempt of a special train that runs on the Market Day Festival. And the memories of those who had seen it will never be forgotten by everyone who lives in this small seaside market town. Number 8. Despite being involved in a train crash at Lewisham, number 34066, Spitfire was rebuilt and put back into service working for the Southern Region of British Railways. She was withdrawn in 1964 and was meant for preservation. However, another member of the class got preserved instead, and so she was left to rot at Barry Island. Fortunately for her, she was saved by the Northwestern Region of British Railways, and once they restored her to her former glory, and was renamed to Rebecca Fargate. She was placed on the mainline operations, pulling passenger trains between Tidmouth and Baker Sound, and some exquisite regional trains between Tidmouth and Brandon. Despite her happily working for the Northwestern Region and/or Northwestern Railway, she still received some scars from her involvement in the accident at Lewisham, but learns to move on with life and eventually forgetting about her dark past. Today, you can still see her operating along the main lines alongside a D16 known as Molly Thatcher, and she's also still with us to this day alongside the bullied Light Pacific herself. Number 9. The LMS Coronation class was a fleet of 38 462 Pacifics that were built by the LMS Crew Works between 1937 and 1948. These steam locomotives were made to support the fastest express trains along the west coast mainline of the LMS, with their streamlined counterparts being built sometime during the late 1930s, while the more conventional designs was built a year after the last of the streamlined locomotives were built. Speaking of which, these streamlined locomotives were made to pull the Coronation Scott, which is a train that runs from London to Glasgow, and one of these locomotives even broke a speed record before Mallard did in 1938. Unfortunately, during the war, the streamlined casing was removed, and between the 1960s, all of the Coronation classes were withdrawn, with the likely exception of 3 survivors. LMS Coronation number 6236, the city of Bradford, was built in July of 1939 to operate express trains out of London's Euston towards Holyhead and Glasgow, before she ended up at the Great Western Main Line during the locomotive exchange trials. She returned back to the West Coast Mainline service operations until being withdrawn sometime during the 1960s by British Railways. Surprisingly, the Northwestern Region was also able to save her from scrap, and once she was restored to operations and renamed to the Duchess of Loughborough, she was placed on the service on the Northwestern Mainline, pulling fast express trains between Tidmouth and Manchester. As of today, the Duchess of Loughborough and/or the city of Bradford is still in operation with us on the Northwestern Railway, pulling rail tours in and out of the island, and still pulling fast express trains between Tidmouth and Manchester. And finally, number 10. Now we all know that the Northwestern Railway has a fleet of coaches that they call home, like the BR Mark 1s, Mark 2s, and Mark 3s. But they also have the BR Mark 4s and Mark 5s and Mark 5As. The BR Mark 4s were introduced alongside the Interstate 225 on the Peel-Godred branch line during the 1990s, when they were delivered by British Rail to operate services between Kildane and Peel-Godred, and that extended towards Morecambe upon Thames. Their introduction into service had greatly reduced the services between Kildane and Peel-Godred and later Morecambe, as they would continue in the service even to the new millennium. And as of today, the Northwestern Railway still owns 6 of the Intercity 225s and Mark 4s in their own fleet, and is still operating along the Peel-Godred branch line ever since. As for the Mark 5s, they were entered into service in sometime during early 2020 as a bit of a replacement project for a service that ran from Tidmouth to London's Euston, known as the Sudtrain Sleeper. The service was introduced in the late 1990s by the Northwestern Railway as an overnight sleeper service that ran from the island of Sodor to the main station that used to be served by the LMS. And in 2019, the Northwestern Railway received orders from CAF for 25 new carriages that will replace the BR Mark 3s under sleeper service, and they later arrived in early 2020 and soon gradually replaced the Mark 3s. And as of today, all 25 of these carriages are now seen at the Sudtrain Sleeper, still operating with us to this day. And finally, for the BR Mark 5As, they were also introduced into service by the Northwestern Railway and were also built by CAF. And they were introduced into service in early 2020 as a bit of a project done by the Northwestern Railway to have fast regional express trains between Tidmouth and Kirkronan, which later introduced into service during the summer of 2020. Despite the hard times that the Northwestern Railway faced at the time, The news service was a success, averaging about 25 million passengers during the 2021-2022 fiscal year of the island of Sodor. But unfortunately, it was short-lived, as by December of 2023, cracks were began to show, and by the time that late 2024 arrived, they're expected to be withdrawn from service on the Northwestern Railway and removed from their stock. Despite this upsetting news, we can all agree that the carriages of the Northwestern Railway are diverse in stock. From pre-grouping, grouping, or post-grouping, these types of carriages were still in operation with the island, with us to this day. Wow, this was longer than I expected to be. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video that I just randomly made out of nowhere. And I'd like to give you a bit of a happy Thanksgiving, since I'm essentially American, and yes, I do celebrate that month. But hey, who knows? Maybe the next one will probably come out on New Year's Day. Maybe, I don't know yet. Anyway, the next one will be coming out in January. And yeah, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!